Hello once again everybody at Vintage Iron Range Dirt Track Racing. Today I am joined by Phil LeNoie from Hibbing. Phil, it's nice to see you again. How you been doing?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
Excellent.
Good.
Say Phil, what got you interested in racing?
Just my kind of cars got to be interesting to me, and the noise from the racetrack got my attention, and it just kind of blossomed from there. I lived near the racetrack, and the Saturday night noises just kind of got me interested.
Like a moth to a flame then.
Pretty much.
Okay. No, I understand that you would go to the races as a kid, but you didn't have any money. How did you watch the races?
Back then, the county garage had an oil tank that was up in the air with a ladder leaned against it, and there were a lot of Saturdays I'd climb that ladder and sit on top and watch half the races. The grandstand was in the way, but you could only watch the north end. But it kind of started from there, and then as time went on, we got a little more involved.
Okay. Who are some of the racers that you remember watching as a young kid that you kind of admired?
Well, I can remember seeing Tommy Nesbitt come down from Thunder Bay. His name was announced. Billy Nelson used to race here. Even Billy Redenbaugh, guys like that. And Donnie Oz was just getting his career started at that time.
So this was early 60s?
Yes, okay. 63, 64 in that window.
What made you decide to actually start driving then?
Just a curiosity, I guess, just an urge. I mean, how do you really describe that? It looked like fun, so.
Okay. So what year did you start racing?
I would say around 1967.
No, but before you drove, you built a car, actually?
Yes. Dave Aho and I were both 15 years old in 1965, and we found a 50 Ford, and we pestered his dad and his uncle into putting roll bars into it for us. I mean, we couldn't weld, we didn't know. Mm-hmm. So they did some work for us, and we found someone to drive it, and we got it out to the racetrack. So it was a number 15, and we were 15, so it worked out pretty well.
What kind of car was the first car that you drove?
I want to say it was like a 57 Ford with a 223 cubic inch six-cylinder.
What all classes did you race then throughout your career?
We raced six-cylinder, we've raced a super stock, and we've raced in the late model class as well.
Of those classes, did you have a favorite?
I just enjoyed the racing. Of course, the late models with the greater speed and the greater excitement were probably the most entertaining, but it was all fun.
How many years did you race then?
Approximately 18 seasons.
In a row, or did you take any time off?
There were probably a few gaps here and there.
Okay. But a total altogether about 18 years?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you build your own cars when you raced, or did you buy cars? Because this was before the established chassis business, over-the-shelf stuff was around.
As I mentioned, we had people help us put roll cages in cars. We put roll cages in our own cars. It wasn't until I think it was 1976, we bought a Boyce chassis and built the car as a package deal with a Ford front stub grafted into it. And that would have been in 1976.
No, those were like a kit car, right? Where you assembled all the tubing that they supplied, and then you could graft any type of a front stub onto that car of your choosing?
Yes.
So that wasn't a complete car package that you buy.
It came in a box.
Yeah,
a couple of boxes.
A lot of elbow grease involved in that.
Oh yes.
But for that time, that's a pretty high-tech machine then.
It was pretty good. Yeah, it was a Boyce chassis. There were others out there. I think Gigolo was another one.
Now, did you race for any car owners, or did you own all your cars, or what was that?
It was mostly partnerships. The late models basically belonged to a friend of mine named Mike Palazzari, and he funded most of that.
So you were the hired gun then to drive?
Yeah, I did the driving. We worked on it together.
No, but you owned some of your cars as well?
Yeah, the six cylinders. I had a super stock that was a 63 Plymouth. I pretty much took care of that myself. Yeah.
Okay. Who were some of the guys that you remember racing against?
Well, I raced against Donnie Oz. I raced against Billy Matzdorf. Brad Hansen was starting his career. Bruce Grierson was one of the six-cylinder guys. But then in the supers, raced against Bobby Girardi and gentlemen like that. Roger Nemi, I think, was involved. Yeah, there were quite a few guys out and about at that time.
Now, you were one of the brave guys who dare venture and raced a Gremlin in the 6-cylinder class. You're one of the few. Why did you decide to race a Gremlin?
Well, I was involved with a fellow named Bill Zittich at that time. He thought it would be a fun car to try racing, and I believe Gary Taylor had already run his and had some success with it. And we had kind of an ABC passion in it as to be anything but Chevrolet. So we were willing to try the things that were a little bit out of the norm.
Be a little different then.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I remember as a kid sitting in the stands, you rolled that Gremlin over one night in Hibbing.
Yes, I did.
I vaguely remember that.
With a little bit of help, it kind of got bumped into and turned sideways, and the car rolled actually driver's side down. Usually, you think about a guy going over the top and rolling to the right. We kind of got tipped, turned sideways, and flopped to the left.
Was that the end of that car then?
Pretty much.
What all tracks did you race at?
Mainly Hibbing, Grand Rapids, Duluth, Proctor for say, and the Superior. But we raced in Bemidji and we raced in International Falls a few times.
So now, were these tracks just like tracks you go to for specials, or did you race them a lot on a regular basis?
When we were running the late model, we ran 3 nights a weekend. We'd run Hibbing, Rapids, and Proctor for say, and sometimes Superior.
So you ran a pretty hectic schedule in your prime then?
It was 3 nights of racing and 3 nights of working on the car, and we'd usually take Monday night off just to wash the mud off it and accumulate a list of things that had to be done.
Well, that's still not a night off though, that's work too.
Well, we shortened that up.
What was your best memory of racing back then?
I suppose when I ended up winning the Stampede in Bemidji, that was probably the most fun with the 6-cylinder with the Gremlin.
What was your worst memory?
There was a night in Hibbing where I hit a car that had spun out. He was in a cloud of dust, and I never saw him. I just drove right into him at speed. So
Totaled the car out?
Yeah, it was pretty tough on his car, and that was the end of that season for that car too.
Yeah, definitely not a good thing to happen.
No.
Now, I remember you as being number 73 in 6-cylinders in that Gremlin, sponsored by Oil Tech Lab. But then you are also number 34 at times. I've seen pictures.
Yes.
And then you said when you were 15 years old, you and Dave Aho built that car. And since you're both 15, you numbered it 15. Why were you 34? Why were you 73?
I think 34 was out of respect for George Kempton, who helped us with the car. The 73, I believe, was something that was an attachment to Bill Zittich.
Okay. What type of driver did you consider yourself to be?
I always tried to drive. I'd drive the car fairly hard, but I tried to drive clean. I had the same front bumper on the Gremlin for 3 seasons. Never had to change it. No, if I got to a paying position, it was because of my efforts. I would try to do it as cleanly as I could.
So more of a gentleman driver.
Pretty much, okay. Yeah. Maybe too much.
All right. Well, this concludes part 1 of our interview with Phil LeNoie. Please stay tuned for part 2.